Welcome, the rare gems. The world breaks everyone, and afterward, some are strong at the broken places. Ernest Hemingway. There's a point in every Sigma female's life when she realizes something disturbing. Her warmth is fading not because she wants it to, but because life keeps giving her reasons to let it go. She wasn't born cold. She didn't start off detached. In fact, she probably cared too much, loved too deeply, and gave more chances than she should have. But the more she experienced, the more she learned. The world doesn't reward softness. It takes advantage of it. If you're a Sigma male watching this, you've seen this happen. Maybe you've watched a strong, independent woman in your life change. Maybe you've noticed how she's not as open as she used to be, how her kindness now comes with walls, how she's no longer willing to play a game that keeps punishing her for being real. Or maybe this is personal. Maybe you are that woman, slowly becoming someone you never thought you'd be. This is not a pity story. This is not about blaming the world. This is about seeing reality for what it is and deciding how to move forward. And here's the truth. A Sigma female doesn't become cold because she's weak. She becomes cold because she's smart. But is there a way to stay strong without losing yourself completely? Watch this video and find out. Let's dive into 11 reasons how Sigma females slowly become cold-hearted. Number 1. The first betrayal taught her the game, but the repeated ones made her master it. A Sigma female doesn't walk through life assuming everyone is out to get her. She doesn't start off cold, cynical, or distant. If anything, she's dangerously open at first, giving trust in pieces, watching how people handle it. She wants to believe that honesty still means something, that loyalty still carries weight. But reality has a way of correcting naive beliefs. The first betrayal? That one hurts. It stings in a way that shakes her to her core, not just because someone let her down, but because she realizes she miscalculated. She replayed the conversations, the red flags she ignored, the gut feelings she pushed aside. The betrayal itself is painful, but what hits even harder is the self-blame. How could she have let this happen? She promises herself it won't happen again. She adjusts. She sharpens her instincts. But then, it happens again, and again. Each time it gets a little less shocking. She stops being surprised by deception. She stops giving people the benefit of the doubt. Eventually, she stops getting hurt, not because she's healed, but because she's numb. At this stage, something shifts. She no longer takes betrayal personally. Instead of breaking her, it becomes a lesson. Every time someone lies, cheats, or manipulates, she doesn't fall apart. She studies them. She watches their patterns, learns the psychology behind their actions, and files it away. And over time, she masters the game she never wanted to play. But here's the cost. With every betrayal, a piece of her warmth dies. She becomes selective about who gets access to her, and even those who do never really reach the depths of her trust. She understands now, betrayal isn't an accident. It's a choice people make when they think they can get away with it. So she adapts. She still moves through the world, but differently, no longer open, no longer naive, not necessarily bitter, but prepared. Number 2, she's seen people apologize without changing, so she stops accepting apologies. She used to give people the benefit of the doubt. She believed in second chances, in honest mistakes, in the idea that if someone was truly sorry, they'd do better next time. But then life taught her a brutal truth. Most people apologize not because they regret their actions, but because they don't like the consequences. She's seen it too many times. Someone hurts her. They say all the right things. I didn't mean to. I'll do better. I promise it won't happen again. And for a while she believed them, but then the same behavior, the same disrespect, the same betrayal, all over again. It was never about changing. It was about buying time until she let her guard down. She started paying attention to patterns, not promises. And the more she observed, the more she realized. People will say anything to keep access to you, but few will actually prove their words through action. So she stopped accepting apologies. Not out of bitterness, but out of self-respect. Words mean nothing without action. And she refuses to keep playing a game where she's expected to forgive while they continue to repeat. Now, when someone says, "I'm sorry," she doesn't argue, she doesn't fight, she doesn't even respond. She just watches. Watches to see if their behavior changes. watches to see if they meant anything they said, and most of the time, they don't. And that's why she's different now. Colder, maybe. Less tolerant, definitely. Not because she wants to be, but because life has shown her that believing in words without proof is how you get played over and over again. She doesn't need apologies. She needs consistency. And if someone can't offer that, then their words are just noise. Number 3. Her coldness is not a choice, it's a survival mechanism. People assume she chooses to be this way, that she woke up one day and decided to be distant, detached, and hard to reach. But that's not the truth. The world made her this way. She started out open, trusting, and willing to see the good in people. She believed in connection, in honesty, in the idea that if she gave love freely, it would come back to her in the same form. But life had other lessons in store. She was betrayed not once, but repeatedly. She was taken for granted by people who mistook her kindness for weakness. She gave and gave, only to realize that most people were only there for as long as they benefited from her presence. And every time she trusted again, every time she thought, maybe this person is different, she was reminded why she built her walls in the first place. So, no, her coldness isn't a choice. It's self-defense. She doesn't want to be distant, but she needs to be. She doesn't want to shut people out, but she's learned that keeping the wrong ones in is far more dangerous. She doesn't enjoy being guarded, but she's seen what happens when she isn't. And the most devastating part? Once she reaches this point, there's no going back. The warmth she once had, the endless patience, the blind trust, the willingness to keep trying, has been burned away by experience. She's not bitter, she's not angry, she's just done. And that's the part people don't understand. She didn't become cold. She was made this way. And if people want to blame her for that, they should take a long, hard look at the world that shaped her. Number 4. Watching others win by being fake while she loses by being real. Nothing grinds a Sigma female's soul more than seeing how the world rewards the very things she refuses to be: fake, manipulative, and shallow. She watches as liars charm their way into people's good graces. She sees manipulators get ahead by playing the game, saying the right things, and pretending to be what others want. Meanwhile, she, who operates with honesty, depth, and integrity, gets dismissed, overlooked, or even punished. At first, she tries to ignore it. She tells herself that playing fair will eventually pay off, that good things come to those who stay true to themselves. But reality keeps proving her wrong. She watches the workplace promote the smooth talkers while hard-working, no-nonsense people get sidelined. She sees fake friendships thrive while her genuine loyalty is taken for granted. She notices how charm gets mistaken for substance and how people would rather be lied to than face the truth. She doesn't envy these people. She despises the system that rewards them. It disgusts her how easily people fall for appearances while ignoring the substance behind them. And slowly something inside her shifts. She doesn't stoop to their level. She refuses to become fake just to fit in. But she does one thing that changes everything. She withdraws from the game. She stops wasting energy proving herself to people who prefer illusions. She no longer tries to explain her depth to those content with surface-level nonsense. She watches the fakes play their game, but she refuses to be a piece on their board. Instead, she builds her own world, one where she plays by her own rules. And that's the real power move. While the fakes are busy chasing validation, she's building something real, something lasting. And when their masks eventually slip, and they always do, she'll still be standing, untouched, unaffected, and free. Number 5. People confuse her kindness for weakness, so she erases the option. A Sigma female doesn't just give, she gives deeply. Her time, her energy, her support, it all comes from a place of genuine care. She doesn't do things halfway. If she's in your corner, she's all in. But there's a catch. She expects nothing in return, not because she doesn't want reciprocity, but because she never wants to need it. At first, this feels like strength. She tells herself that being self-sufficient means she won't be disappointed, that giving without expectations is a virtue. But life quickly teaches her otherwise. She starts noticing the pattern. People take from her without hesitation. They lean on her strength without ever offering support in return. They mistake her self-reliance for an infinite well of energy, assuming she'll always be there, always listening, always helping. They come to her with problems, but disappear when she has her own. And worst of all, they assume that because she doesn't complain, she doesn't feel it. She does. She just doesn't show it. So she makes a ruthless decision. If kindness only invites exploitation, then it's better to withhold it. Not from everyone, but from most. She starts saying no without guilt. She stops answering calls that drain her. She watches as people who once depended on her scramble, realizing she was the glue holding everything together. And she feels no need to explain. Because here's what she's learned. When people take kindness for granted, the best lesson isn't words, it's absence. Now, she gives selectively, sparingly, only to those who have earned it. And the rest? They're left wondering where their endless source of support disappeared to. They never understood that her kindness wasn't weakness. It was a choice. And now, that choice is no longer available. Number 6. She gave love without conditions, but it always came with an expiration date. A Sigma female doesn't love halfway. When she chooses someone, it's not because she's lonely, bored, or looking for validation. It's because something about them moves her. She loves with intensity, with depth, with a loyalty that's unshakable. She never enters relationships with exit strategies. When she's in, she's all in. But here's the cruel reality. No matter how deeply she loves, it always ends the same way. Not just in loss, but in betrayal, disappointment, or slow-growing indifference. It's never about one big moment. It's the small, repeated realizations that chip away at her belief in love itself. She starts noticing the patterns. People love the idea of her, but not the reality. They admire her independence at first, but later resent that they can't control her. They claim to cherish her depth, but when things get tough, they choose something easier. And worst of all, they take her love for granted, assuming she'll always be there, until the day she isn't. Each heartbreak changes her. Not in an obvious, dramatic way. She doesn't become bitter overnight. She doesn't suddenly swear off love. But little by little, something inside her shifts. She stops giving her heart so freely, not because she doesn't want to love, but because she can't love the same way anymore. She's learned the hard way. People are temporary, but their betrayals last. So she adapts. She becomes more selective, more guarded. She keeps a part of herself untouchable, even in love. And if someone asks why she no longer loves with reckless abandon, she won't explain. Because the truth is simple. Her heart no longer allows it. Number 7. She used to explain herself, but no one really listened. At first she believed in clarity. She thought that if she just explained herself, her thoughts, her choices, her need for space, people would understand. She didn't expect them to agree, just to get it. So she put in the effort. She broke down her perspective, carefully choosing her words, thinking if she could just articulate it right, they would finally see her for who she really was. But over time, she realized something disturbing. People don't listen to understand. They listen to respond. She saw it in their glazed-over expressions, their rushed interruptions, the way they cherry-picked her words just to twist them into something they could argue against. Conversations became battles, not bridges. Every explanation was met with defensiveness, dismissal, or, worst of all, indifference. So she made a quiet but life-altering decision. Stop explaining. She no longer justifies why she disappears for days to recharge. She no longer defends why she doesn't follow the crowd. She doesn't waste energy proving why she thinks differently, why she values solitude, why her mind operates in ways others don't understand. If they don't get it, they don't get it. And she no longer cares to make them. With that, a part of her warmth fades. Not out of bitterness, but out of exhaustion. She's tired of trying to be understood in a world that only hears what it wants to hear. Now, she lets her actions speak. If someone truly wants to know her, they'll observe, they'll pay attention. And if they don't, she won't correct them. Let them misunderstand her. Let them assume. Because in the end, the only people who deserve to know her are the ones who take the time to see her without explanation. Number 9. The burden of always being the strong one crushed her softness. No one ever stops to ask the Sigma female if she's okay, not because they don't care, but because they assume she is. She's the one who always has it together, the one who never breaks, never complains, never asks for help. She's the rock, the problem solver, the person everyone turns to when life gets messy. But here's what no one realizes. Even the strongest get tired. Even the ones who carry the weight of others eventually collapse under the burden. At first, she convinces herself it's just temporary, that if she can just push through, things will even out. But life keeps proving otherwise. The same people who depend on her never seem to have the space for her struggles. When she's overwhelmed, she's met with, "You're strong, you'll figure it out." When she finally hints at needing support, she's met with silence. And slowly, the exhaustion turns into numbness. She stops offering comfort so freely, not because she's mean or bitter, but because she has nothing left to give. She no longer reacts the same way when people dump their problems on her. Where she once offered warmth and reassurance, now there's only quiet detachment. It's not that she hates people, she just doesn't have the energy to care anymore. The world drained her without ever filling her back up, and now she's running on empty. She still appears strong, but the truth is, she's just on autopilot. She still listens, but she no longer absorbs. She still functions, but the softness she once had, the part of her that felt deeply, has been slowly crushed under the weight of being everyone's emotional anchor. And the saddest part? No one even notices the change. Because when you've always been strong, people never stop to think about what happens when you finally break. Number 10. She was pushed to be self-reliant, but it came at the cost of connection. She never set out to be this independent. It wasn't a choice. It was survival. Time and time again, she learned that depending on others only led to disappointment. Promises were broken. Help came with conditions. People who swore they'd be there vanished the moment she actually needed them. So she stopped asking, stopped expecting, stopped believing that anyone but herself would show up when it mattered, and she got good at it. She learned how to solve her own problems, carry her own burdens, and silence her own pain. She became her own safety net, her own backup plan. While others crumbled under setbacks, she adapted. While they searched for validation, she thrived in solitude. Strength became her second nature, and weakness? That was something she refused to entertain. But here's the cost no one talks about. The stronger she became, the harder it was to connect with people. She reached a point where needing someone felt foreign, almost repulsive. Not because she thought she was above it, but because she no longer knew how to let someone in. Vulnerability felt like a language she had forgotten, and every time someone tried to get close, her instincts told her to pull away. The irony? People admire her independence, yet they don't realize it came at the price of deep, meaningful connection. While others build relationships through shared struggles, she stands alone, untouchable, unreachable. She isn't bitter, just distant, not because she doesn't want closeness, but because the idea of relying on someone again, it feels dangerous. And so she remains self-sufficient, not because she chooses to be, but because life pushed her so far into independence that she no longer knows how to need anyone. Number 11. She learned that vulnerability without boundaries is just self-sabotage. There was a time when she believed that honesty and openness were the keys to real connection, that if she let people see her fully, her struggles, her fears, her raw emotions, they would meet her with the same authenticity. She was wrong. She learned the hard way that not everyone values vulnerability the way she does. Some see it as an invitation to manipulate. Others treat it like entertainment, collecting her struggles like gossip to be passed around. And the worst ones, they pretend to care, only to use her deepest truths against her when it benefits them. It took her a while to see the pattern. She kept thinking, maybe this time will be different. Maybe this person won't twist my words, won't betray my trust, won't turn my pain into their weapon. But time and time again she was proven wrong, so she adapted. Now she doesn't spill her heart to just anyone. She's careful. She watches. She tests people in small ways before ever revealing something real. She keeps her emotions under lock and key, only opening up to those who have proven themselves over time. This doesn't mean she's cold, it means she's wise. She understands now that vulnerability without boundaries isn't strength, it's self-sabotage. It's handing people a loaded gun and hoping they don't pull the trigger. And hope? That's not a strategy. So she protects herself. She still feels deeply, still cares intensely, but she no longer offers that side of herself freely. If someone wants access to her heart, they have to earn it. Because the truth is, not everyone deserves to know her depths, and she refuses to keep making the mistake of believing they do. Conclusion: the unseen cost of becoming cold. If there's one thing people get wrong about the Sigma female, it's this. They think she wants to be cold, that she enjoys the distance, the isolation, the unshakable walls she's built. But the truth? She had no other choice. No one wakes up one day and decides to stop caring. It happens slowly, after too many betrayals, too much disappointment, and too many lessons that came with a price. She didn't want to become this version of herself. She had to, just to survive in a world that kept testing her limits. But here's what most people will never understand. Her coldness is not emptiness, it's selectivity. She hasn't lost the ability to feel. She's just far more careful about who gets access to that side of her, because she's been through too much to waste her energy on people who don't deserve it. So if you've walked this same road, if you feel yourself hardening because life left you no other option, don't mistake your coldness for weakness. It's not. It's the armor you had to forge when the world refused to protect you. But also remember this: being guarded doesn't mean you have to be alone. Not everyone is out to use you. Not everyone is a threat. Let your instincts guide you, but don't let your past betrayals define your future connections. Protect yourself, but don't lock yourself away from the right people. Because the ultimate power, it's not just in knowing when to shut people out. It's in knowing who's still worth letting in. Thank you for watching The Rare Gems, and God bless you.